Hello, welcome to my video. Today I'm going to cover a game between Wesley So and Alireza Firouzja from Magnus Carlsen Invitational. So we had caro-kann, the typical repertoire of Alireza. So chose e5, which is the most challenging move these days. Now bishop f5 and now knight f3, the short variation. And now e6, bishop e2 and now knight e7. Black still has a decision to make. Does he want to go to c8 and just develop his bishop, or to move his bishop to g6 and to put it on f5? That's up to black to decide. White castles and now h6. Black is staying flexible. With h6, he might want to go bishop h7 and knight f5 on the next couple of moves. With h6, he wants to keep his bishop alive. He doesn't want to allow knight h4, which would lose the bishop pair. He might want to play g5. He can also put his bishop on h7. We'll see what happens. White goes knight d2, and now knight d7 first. Knight b3, trying to stop c5 from black. And now Alireza plays g5. It's also possible to play knight c8. And if white plays a typical move for this variation like a4 trying to expand on the queen side, now black can finish development by bishop e7 and after a5 to go a6. The black knight is heading towards a7, b5. In case of bishop e3, knight a7, and if c4, then black takes, and after castling he will eventually get to b5, have some kind of counterplay on the queen side. Also, here it was possible to go for bishop h7 and then go knight c8, start preparing c5. But here, Alireza chose, in my opinion, a more aggressive approach, g5, trying to destabilize this knight, which is defending the d4 pawn. In case the knight goes to e1, then c5 is easier to push, because also the e5 pawn is weak. Wesley chose to play bishop d2. Now a5 trying to expand on the queen side, but Wesley stops it with a4, and now queen c7. It's also interesting here to play a move like bishop g7, and after knight e1, with the idea of breaking the kingside pawns with f4, black would go c5, and this would lead to a very interesting position after bishop b5, knight c6, and in case of c3 to defend the pawn, just c4, and after this, castles. This is very sharp. f6 is gonna come next from black with lots of complications. But instead he went for queen c7, trying to target the e5 pawn so he can play f6 much easier. Wesley plays c3. It's also possible to play for c4 immediately. And if black takes bishop c4, black cannot go knight b6 because of bishop a5 and losing a pawn. The most logical seems knight d5 here. And if knight e1 to go to b4, white is the one who is slightly better, but still he has to be careful because his pawns in the center are not that stable. So there is always that lingering danger that the pawns might crumble after some c5. Not immediately because the king is still unsafe, but at one point it might be relevant, because once the c5 comes at the right moment, central pawns will just crumble. It's a really dynamic position. Black's pawn structure is slightly better. Even black has some trouble with g5. Positionally it's not a great move, but dynamically it's doing something. But instead Wesley chose a more calm approach, trying to stabilize d4. And now Alireza plays f6, trying to break the center. Here there's nothing better than to just capture, because the e5 pawn is attacked way too many times. He takes, and now knight g6. Black delays this capture, because if he takes immediately, then he surrenders the e5 square. White gets to e5 and threatens bishop h5 next. So black would have to go rook g8, and after c4, black's position is just not very sound. After c4, the rook goes to c1 and lots of threats are going to appear. The king is not safe, a5 is a big liability. Black cannot castle alongside because of bishop takes a5, so it's really tough to find a safe place for the king. So Alireza delays this, like I said, and goes knight g6, trying to control the e5 square. Now Wesley chose to play c4. If black captures on c4, there's no knight d5 in the end. For example, after this, there is no knight d5, and white can focus on e6 pawn. That's why he played at this moment c4. And now bishop d6 by Alireza. For example, if black took on f6 now, white still has knight e5. And of course, you cannot capture on e5 twice because there is bishop c3 and losing the knight on f6. But if you take only once, and knight d7, there is this check which is very unpleasant, and after king e7 you take, and after ed, just queen f3, this looks very unpleasant. For example, if he plays bishop e6, then knight d4, all the pieces are actually involved in the play. If knight takes e5, then queen g3, and the next move is going to be rook e1 with f4, and I really don't like what would happen to black here. But instead, if on knight e5 he plays a move like bishop d6, there is one thing I forgot to mention here. After knight e5, g4 is a big threat, trying to capture the bishop, trying to trap it. But it appears to be that it's not that bad, even if black gives up the bishop. After g4, bishop e4, and after f3, black can capture on e5. And now d5 is not as good as you might think, because after capturing, he takes on e4, but bishop h2, after king h1, knight e4, black has some compensation for a piece. Because now white has to play bishop e1 to stop knight g3. And after castling, I'm not sure how would this play out. It's really double-edged. White's pieces are just too passive in this position. I don't think that black is in so much trouble. And if white takes on e4 like this, then knight takes here, bishop e5. The difference is that king can go to g2 immediately. And we have some kind of position with the tempo up, but king is on g2. And after this, bishop e1 castles. Now white gets to play queen d3. Now this is a better version because the king is in g2. It might be a quicker way to kick this bishop away with rook h1. But it's still a very complex position. I don't say that black is any worse in this position than in the previous one, but it seems like the better version is to have king on g2. Because of these rook h1 ideas, to kick this very annoying bishop. But in the game, Alireza still delays the capture. He plays bishop d6. Now Wesley tries to open up the position with cd. And now cd is very bad because of rook c1, and after queen d8, knight c5 is possible. This is a very bad position because if bishop takes, then dc, and white has a bishop pair. Black's dark squares are now very exposed. It's hard to defend this position. And if knight takes, then you can take with d pawn and have bishop b5. In the end of this, knight d4 comes next. This is a position that you don't want to play as black. So Alireza chose to take with e pawn, and now Wesley So plays a brilliant move in my opinion. When I saw this move for the first time, I was really shocked. He plays bishop d3 here. And now the bishop really doesn't have a choice, it has to capture. Bishop takes a5. Now a discovered attack on the bishop. Black has two choices, he can go b6, or he can capture with the rook on a5. If he played b6, then queen d3. First attacking the knight on g6, so black still cannot capture on a5, but black has knight f4, and after queen f5, black would capture. And this leads to a very complex position, very dynamic position. White is permanently with the piece down, but he has a very strong initiative here. After g3, knight h5, let's say that black wants to keep the piece on the board. Rook ac1, knight g7, queen g6. Black is paralyzed almost, and it's not easy to recommend something. White will go rook e1 next, put some pressure on black. There is even a threat like knight a5 at some point. Let's say I make some random moves. Let's just move this rook on the a file. Rook e1, rook a8. Now I think decisive blow here is knight a5, using the overloaded pieces in black's position. If rook takes, then rook e8 is a checkmate very soon. If queen takes, then bishop on d6 hangs, and also this knight on d7 hangs. White returns the material, but also has two extra pawns. So b6 was playable, but it leads to a very tough position, tough to defend. That's why he chose to play rook a5 instead. Wesley So takes on d3, king f7 to defend the knight, and now he takes on a5, and Firouzja takes on a5. It was better to play first g4. And now if the knight moves somewhere, let's say to d2, then black takes on a5. And now black is better because he has two minor pieces for a rook. So here the only way that white could have gone is knight e5. And after capturing d, bishop e5, after the knight moves, bishop takes on h2, and it still is very complicated because black is slightly worse here because of the material disadvantage, but still queen e5 in this position looks uncomfortable, and white still has to find some precise moves like knight d4. And now black was headed towards h5 like it was shown, and after queen f5 they would need to exchange queens, because after queen h4 there is queen e6, and we have a forced variation like this. King has to take on f6, and now queen e6 would be winning because after king g5 there is checkmate on f5, and after king g7 white just wins the queen after knight f5. Black would be forced to exchange queens, but even after that, bishop e5, this seems like some kind of fortress. Eventually black takes on f6, he has a pawn for the exchange, it's looking like a fortress. And also this d pawn might become a nice factor for black. But instead he plays queen takes, which is the most automatic move. But after this, black's position becomes unplayable. Queen goes to f5. Now black cannot capture on f6 because of knight e5, unfortunately. And however he takes d, and the knight on f6 gets lost. If knight goes to f8, rook e1, and next move is going to be h4. The pawns on the king side get crushed. He tried to bring his queen back with queen d8 to somehow try to defend. Now Wesley just plays rook e1, brings all his pieces into the play. Knight f8, trying to stop queen e6. And now rook e7, a very nice blow. Black must capture. Fe, king takes, and now rook e1. King d6, the only move, and now knight e5. Now black would like to go to c7, but there is knight f7, losing the rook on h8. Black doesn't have time for that, he has to defend by rook h7, but after capturing, now black cannot avoid the material losses because after knight takes, queen h7, and he's just down on exchange. Alireza played queen d7 here, which led to a checkmate on e5, which is very funny. That was it. Alireza played a very risky line in the caro-kann with g5. It almost seems like a prep, this whole variation. Especially the bishop d3 move, it's very nice. Bishop d3 in this position is just brilliant. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching this. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section. Have a nice day and see you later. Bye.